SalesTV, and we kind of have some of the normal suspects here, but we also have, well, we don't need to introduce ourselves because we're here every week, aren't we? Hi, Alex. Hi, Andy. We're fortunate enough to have Alex's son joining us today, his son, Old Man Jensen. So let's bring Old Man Jensen in from the green room.
Yeah.
Hey all folks, Jensen Abbott here. Lovely to speak to you. Just thought I would share this quickly. Are you feeling stuck in the 80s or 90s, like myself, with your outdated traditional CMS? Yes, you do? Ah, perfect. Well, I think it's time for an upgrade to the modern age of headless CMS. Don't you think? To upgrade to the modern age of headless CMS. With headless, you'll have a front end and a back end that are completely separate, allowing for maximum flexibility and the ability to reuse and deliver content through open APIs. Imagine it like upgrading from a Nokia brick phone to an iPhone. You'll finally be able to stay up to date with the latest trends and technology in the digital world. Plus, you'll save a ton of money in the process. No one wants to be left behind. So say goodbye to the limitations of a monolithic system and say hello to a flexible and adaptable digital experience.
I must say that when Jensen published that, I was absolutely blown away because it showed up in my newsfeed and it was obviously him, but also so obviously not him. And I was just like, what on earth is going on here? Anyway, let's welcome the man himself. Hi, Jensen. Lovely to see you.
How are you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you. That was a remarkable piece of content that you created there. Not just because you. So how did you do it? First of all, I'm not going to jump to conclusions here.
Okay. So in all honesty, I actually saw a similar piece of content from someone else in the content.ai team, and I thought, well, I really like the idea or the messaging that content has, but I think it could do with a little bit more life into it. So as I'm kind of watching the video and scrolling through my phone, it was funny. An old person kind of filter appeared on my Snapchat at the perfect time that on the video it was saying, do you feel like you're stuck in the 80s or 90s? Which obviously got my brain thinking. I was like, I could play around with this here. I could kind of put an old person filter on myself, pretending that I'm kind of outdated and old. And then I could transition into myself explaining the benefits or the value of content.ai. But yeah, it was really fun to create. Really fun to create, and it's that type of content that I love to put out. It's educational, but also, like you said yourself, Adam, you enjoyed it, which is the main focus for myself.
Yeah, I mean, I was roaring with laughter when I saw it because it's just enough like you to look a bit like you. Yeah, that's a really good point there from Maurizio. Define old. Yeah, not that old. I like to say it's not that old. Not from where I'm sitting anyway.
I must say, my wife and I were in New Look returning an item of clothing at the weekend, and they've changed their refund process. So you have to process the refund yourself on your phone. And my wife was trying to do it apologetically, taking quite some time. And she says, "Oh, you know, what do old people do when they have to do this?" I said, "Jackie, we are old." Which she didn't like, of course.
Yeah. I can't for the life of me understand why. For the life of me understand why. So, yeah, did you see that in your newsfeed, Andy?
I didn't know, but I think it's very timely because I was talking to Rob Marklove from TPI last week, and I don't know if you've seen it, but I commented on it. There's a recording of a Tesla salesperson talking to a customer, and I can only hope that it's authentic, that the customer didn't know. But it's fascinating to see Jensen looking at it there, putting some filters on, looking at technology, actually how Tesla's looking at this technology and theoretically creating an experience about, do you want to replace your car or service your car? And I thought that was fascinating because you can tell massively that it's AI generated. Those gaps in the conversation. It's not that instant humanity that we're riffing about here. And it led me to then have a really interesting conversation about Gerd Leonhard, which I don't know if you've seen him on YouTube, but he's the futurist, and he just talks about technology on a tear. And, you know, actually that with all of this technology that's going on, the last place for innovation is the human being. And that will be the battleground. It won't be all of these technologies that actually, because all these technologies, everyone's got access to them. There's hygiene and you know, equality and excellence is going to be in every organization. So it's actually about the human being that is going to be able to harness these and actually put their individuality to pace. And then you ask the question, BBC, I don't know if you saw that, I put it out on a link last night, which is the BBC have just looked and released a really interesting article that says if technology is making us more productive, why doesn't that show up in any of the numbers? And actually, we're not being any more productive because of all these new technologies, which is, I just think all of this stuff coming out right now is a really rich debate about where the hell does this technology take us in the future, particularly in the context of sales.
Yeah, I think it is interesting. And I mean, you gentlemen just started out the job, haven't you? So,
Yeah.
it's, I guess it's a bit of a culture shock for both you and for them, because you're at the very kind of leading edge of social selling and of your ability, evidenced by that video that you kind of just knocked out quickly to give to your audience, is probably a long way ahead of what everyone else in the business is doing. So how's that working out? Because obviously, you know, you've come with your own basket of skills and you've gone into an environment where every company, I imagine, is scared of this kind of behavior, really.
Yeah. So it's, I mean, really, Adam, I've got to give credit to yourself and Tim. I had, yeah.
Honestly, just because he's invited you on, you don't need to give it all for it, sir.
And of
We
course,
love you, Adam.
Yeah.
Thanks, mate.
And of course, Alex. But no, I guess I had the skills, but I just didn't uncover them, and I didn't have. Yeah, I would say I had the skills, but I didn't find that I had the skills, and the social selling training helped me build my confidence up. It helped me find my passion. It helped me find my passion, because if I can take you on a bit of a story. So before the social selling training that we've done, I heard no a lot of times. And for me, I like to look at no as next opportunity. But when you hear it over and over again every day, it starts to become a little bit demoralizing. You question yourself within your job. You question if people actually want to talk to you, which then you think, oh, okay, outside of work, do people even want to talk to me? Am I going to get told go from my friends? Or so from that, it's kind of put me on a little bit of a downer about kind of questioning myself in a sales role, thinking, is sales right for me? Should I continue my career in sales? But then luckily we actually got introduced to yourself, Adam, and that's where the social selling helped me build my confidence. And I use this kind of analogy or story with a lot of people. And Alex, I'm sure you can remember the first networking event I went to. I was speaking with Alex about a prospect that I wanted to speak with in person. Believe it or not, it took me 20 minutes to build up the courage to speak to this person, and also downing a glass of wine to try and help build the confidence.
Yeah, just to be clear, it was a networking event, and it was the afternoon.
Yeah,
Not 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, so it was really scary for myself, especially being quite young, going up to someone who's older, has more experience, is obviously more clued up, more knowledgeable. So for myself, I was quite scared, thinking that I'm going to either be judged or going to be told that I'm wrong and corrected. And actually, I soon realized that everyone in the room no matter their age, no matter their experience, is all feeling the same way. And that is that we're all uncomfortable because we're being asked to go and speak to random people we don't know, we've never met, which for any human being is uncomfortable, until I realized that actually everyone in this room is looking for someone to look up to. Like I was looking for someone who was confident, knowledgeable, I could go and have a conversation with and could educate and teach me something. And I soon realized, actually, why don't I become this person that people look up to? Kind of grow my confidence, build my knowledge, and kind of run away with it and see how I perform then, or how I can have conversations with people in a network environment then. And honestly, since then, it's just been so much easier. I've been attracting people to come in and have a conversation with me. I don't have to go out and look for the conversations. But not just that, I managed to transfer these skills from in person to also on LinkedIn and through digital corridors, which is why I'm able to produce the content I can now. So that's really, Adam, where I kind of built my skills up. And I have to give credit to yourself, Tim, and Alex, for teaching me social selling.
Yeah.
Well,
There's a question there, Adam. Just quickly.
Yeah.
I think someone was wondering what we're talking about. So do you want to frame it?
Yeah. So every week, Sirajuddin, we talk about sales and what's happening in the sales world, and we've got Jensen on as a guest, who is young in sales and was just then talking about his challenge with selling the old way, making him feel that he wasn't effective and he wasn't liked and he wasn't able to achieve anything because he was getting a constant stream of no's, as so many salespeople do, and that he's found his niche, his own style for producing content, and a way of approaching people, which has helped him gain traction and success in this space. And it's one of the challenges that every salesperson faces. With 100 million people out there all trying to sell stuff, you have to find a way of standing out, and you have to leverage your only true unique thing, which is who you are. But I think it's quite interesting that that often corporate structure doesn't embrace this. I mean, every time we go and talk to a new organization, they love the idea, but often they only love the idea up until the point that they realize people have to be set free to be able to do their own thing. And there's a huge irony there, because when you go to one of those networking events, that's exactly what you're given. You're given complete autonomy to go and represent the brand in any way you want, with nobody looking over your shoulder, because there's no way of policing that. Be a mermaid. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you got nobody looking over your shoulder, and yet on social, often people are so concerned that they want to try and constrain people's creativity and their ability to be themselves, and make sure that they're promoting the brand message in the right way, which is quite outdated thinking, isn't it?
Yeah, and on that point, Adam, I think you see it every day on LinkedIn, the corporate posts that tend to be liked by 10 people, but those 10 people work within the organization. Now, that visibility, there's no visibility there. There's no prospects, no new individual that has seen your brand and kind of taken that in. Where you see you get the most visibility is posts that are less about the brand, but still has the brand message within it. But it also has yourself, as everyone knows in today's day and age, people buy from people. We see it everywhere. So building relationships is really important. Just like if I was to ask yourself, Adam, if within this room, if I was to say you need to spend £50,000 on a piece of technology to help, if I said you've got to pick between myself or Alex and you didn't know me, you're more inclined to have a conversation with Alex, as that trust is already there. Not just that, from a social standpoint, if I didn't put out the content that I did, you're not seeing much of me on social, so you're unable to paint a picture of who I am and what I do. So you're less likely to actually give me the time to build that relationship with you, as I'm not putting myself out there. I think especially in sales or today's day and age, you've got to give something before you can actually put your hand out and take it. So you've got to be giving people information to help educate them. And not just be stuck on this idea that my brand is amazing, it's the best, and you need it. Because I think everyone's heard that now for probably about 10 years, that everyone's the best brand and product. And it's just all the same noise in the same space.
Talk a little bit about how different you're feeling in yourself, having transitioned from some of the, let's say, outdated techniques like cold calling and emailing to this more modern approach.
Very good question. Very good question. How am I feeling? I'm feeling a lot more confident. I would say a lot more energetic. I would say that's because I'm feeling more confident. I'm feeling more driven. I feel like I've found my purpose. I feel like I've found my North Star. And all of this kind of comes together, right? As they say, a well-oiled machine, but it takes time. And I think that's what people also have to understand and realize is you're not going to jump into anything and become an expert straight away. Just like Rome wasn't built in a day. You need a plan, you need a strategy, and you need the execution side of that as well. But most importantly, I'd say consistency is key within anything, within work, even within the gym, right? There's a lot of people like to use that gym analogy. Consistency is key. So be consistent with posting, be consistent with networking, sending out connections, be consistent with trying to help other people, before expecting something back. And then I would say from there, you really, or for myself, that's where I found my purpose. Being able to help educate people on what I do, but also being able to just have a conversation with someone. That I don't feel like there's pressure on my shoulders to actually convert an opportunity, right? Is like I think you mentioned earlier, Alex and Adam, is a lot of people, they worry about numbers and I've got to hit this target. Now, when you're hit with this target, you automatically go into sales mode, which actually you're doing more damage to yourself. Going straight into sales mode to hit this number. When you get your number, plan and build a strategy through the content that you create, through changing your mindset from, instead of being kind of this hunter with a spear and you need to hunt everything down because you need to hit your number, actually be more open to have conversations with these individuals, find out what their pains and problems are. Because no one wants to speak to a salesperson anymore because they feel like they're going to get bombarded with messages, emails, cold calling, and no one likes that anymore. And I'm sure everyone here has experienced kind of their phone ringing with an unknown number, and it's, do I answer it? Do I not answer it? Is it going to be a cold call? Is it not going to be a cold call? You answer it, and it's, hi, it's so and so from here. And the first thing you do is you put your phone down, because we are also busy. We have a job to do, but so do the people that you're cold calling. So it's finding different channels that work for you, and building that strategy.
Let's just quickly have a call out to Dr. Grant, who was our guest a couple of weeks ago on here, who's currently on holiday. Yeah, so, Grant, what on earth are you doing watching this show? Why are you not drinking a cocktail and enjoying the sun?
It probably is.
All free.
You're right, Nadab.
And so far, he's trumped Tim by basically, Tim went to Canada.
Yeah, he's in Vancouver.
I can do Bali. Yeah.
So LinkedIn user Neil has said, "Is social selling success sector dependent?" No, absolutely not. And the reason it's not is because it's about people. Social selling is not sector dependent in the same way networking and making relationships isn't sector dependent. The beauty of it is that you can scale the finding people who like you bit that traditionally you would have done by going into a room full of people and walking around the room, shaking hands with people and having a chat, and then saying, we've got something in common, let's get together later. and to be able to do that at scale from your own desk is very attractive. Good. I'm pleased to hear it. I hope you're having a lovely time.
I think some of these conversations or some of these comments are quite interesting.
I mean, that's perfect, isn't it? Yeah. At the first sniff of it being some automation or some bot, you're history, aren't you?
Yeah.
I think you are. I mean, there are times and places for complete automation, and I don't think any multinational these days can't be omnichannel. So you've got to allow the customer to serve themselves or choose which way they want to be served. And actually, each customer may pick several different methodologies. So, there are large corporations in IT right now that are actually saying, you know what, we're not going to put a sales rep into that big multinational in the same way that we used to do, because actually they know how many laptops they want and what configuration. So let them do it online once a framework agreement's been put in place. I know 2 or 3 other organisations. I was teaching this at Cranfield, where we set some challenges with Dr. Jeremy Node for some of the MBA students about how they would come up with some of the challenges, and we gave them Lind as an example. And actually, how do you grapple with, if you have retail, if you have social, if you have an account manager, and if you have inside sales, how do you actually grapple with the context of serving customers? And actually what's coming out now is this teaming effect, which hopefully in certain organizations is going to be liberating, because you're no longer working on a number on your own. You're working on a team, and you're going, okay, it doesn't matter whether that person goes into a retail shop for advice and buys there, or goes to the retail shop for advice and then goes and buys online, or needs an account manager because it's quite complex. And I sense that because customers are changing quicker than salespeople are, we will eventually potentially catch up into a different, happier place where we don't carry a number that's stamped on us, but we actually look to do things and measure things in terms of our customer interactions.
Yeah. I think you're absolutely right. I do think that, and you're right, the customer has changed faster than the salespeople. But I think that part of that is because salespeople have been systematically disempowered over the last decade or 2. Now, part of that is around this kind of number. You made 80% of your number this year, so I'm going to increase your number, and maybe you'll make 80% of your number next year, which is disempowering. And thank you, Amy. Yes, yes, good old Grant. But yeah, so part of it is that. Part of it is the disempowerment, but part of it is about driving the input, not the output. Andy, you're my salesman. Therefore, what I'm looking for is for you to make 100 calls or send 100 emails today, not for you to have 4 conversations or 1 sale, but me driving the input. And I think that what we're starting to see now is the salespeople who are most effective are those people that understand that. And I know we all use this cliche, but most people seem not to believe it, that people buy people. So I try to be a really nice guy, which means people are not scared off, which means people want to have a conversation with me, which means that the conversation, if appropriate, can ultimately become a commercial conversation. Now, that should be the mantra for every salesperson. But I think that fundamentally, if you think about what Jensen said about how he was thinking, maybe people don't like me, maybe sales isn't the job for me, and that weighing on your head precludes you from behaving in a way that makes you attractive to people to have a conversation with.
And to Andy's point, as selling becomes a team sport, it's not just the salesperson that has to do this, it's the team that's engaging with the customer, with the prospect, that has to do this.
Yeah, I think what you're touching on, though, and light blue touch paper stand well back, is this proliferation of what's called sales enablement, where I'm going to be honest, I just want to vomit all over, because it's basically revenue enablement, tool proliferation.
Well, that's what it is. It's about putting tools in quotes, help the salesperson.
Yeah.
It's got nothing to do with enabling sales. Nothing at all.
the reason it doesn't, I'm violently agreeing with you here, is because none of it is about enabling the salesperson to be the best version of themselves that they can be.
Yeah.
It's about a number, and it's about the number in the period of time that you work for me, and I don't care about you.
Yeah.
And that is just crap. I mean,
Let me
why
try-
are we the only?
Let me do it. Sorry, quick time out, because I know Jensen has another call starting in 4 minutes.
Let's all pitch up to that. Let's all go there.
Yeah, you need to buy from Jensen because he's a really good guy. Should we begin with that?
Actually, get the customer on here. Let's surprise them. Hi, you're on live SalesTV. Who the hell are these guys? We could get commentary. We could grade you. We could put like 4 out of 10. We could have scores for. We could do it internationally. Scores from Bali. That's a good one.
Yeah,
Sorry, a
Vancouver.
really poor Eurovision Song Contest gag there. Go on, Alex.
Nil point.
But yeah, Jensen, thank you so much
Yeah,
for
thank you,
coming on
Jensen.
at short notice. Really great to hear your story.
No, thank you for having me. And yeah, it'd be good to jump on some more of these in the future.
We would very much like that, mate. So good luck with your next call. If it's a short call, you can come back in.
Yeah, no's don't take that long.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, guys. Enjoy the rest of the stream. Bye-bye.
You too, Jensen.
Bye bye.
Try.
Yeah, a really good point here from Mark. Long-term brand building versus short-term sales targets. Actually, I don't think that's what it is, though. I think it's long-term sales versus short-term sales targets. So the first bit is about actually making the revenue. The second bit is about setting the revenue objectives. And I think that's the problem, isn't it? The problem is that you're so motivated and driven by a huge target which you have to close this quarter. What you're not able to do is to have breathing space to actually get the business. So I have to end up quantifying this. So Andy, are you going to buy today? Yes or no? And actually, it's that. Okay, Andy's ready to buy in January next year, and he's got his budgets lined up for that, and he's ready to start the program there. And what can you do to pull it forward into this quarter?
But I think so I was talking to James King, COO at IdeaGen. Great company, great guys, Ben Dorks and Jasmine Dorks, North Stars for me in terms of people. But James and I were at a conference in Amsterdam and having a couple of mature beers one night. And
so sorry, just say that again. Having a couple of mature beers.
Yeah.
Yeah, you thought that slipped under the radar, didn't you?
That's code for not getting hammered, or getting hammered and still being able to walk home. But he was interested and said, actually, there's this proliferation of SaaS/software companies, and there's a different selling motion in that space. And actually, if we acknowledge that I think is changing sales in a specific way, because actually long term isn't an option for a lot of these products. It's short term. So if you look at Jordan at Vidyard is not a long term play. It is a short term. Do you want to buy the license? People will buy it like me. He'll buy it online. Do you want to corporate, and so on and so forth. And I think what we've got to be careful about is understanding that there is that selling emotion in these worlds, and it's not wrong. It's just the way the product is positioned and sold. And then more traditional product sales, or even financial service sales, etc. So when I was in leasing, years and years and years ago, what was great and I loved about it is my boss enabled me to run my own company within Barclays. And actually I knew my portfolio really well, and I knew year after year where my revenue and my margin was going to come from, and I could control my own margin and revenue mix for notional profit. And I loved it, and I still loved it. And that, I think, is not optional for a lot of people these days. It's this concept of Yeah, you need to do that because it's transactional. And and if you look at, we've got a segment, I think, these new world technologies, these new world ways of selling those technologies, and then these older ways of looking at technologies, older ways of selling, manufacturing, automotive, etc. And then this completely different way, which is social and omni-channel digital, which I think if we're not careful, we end up trying to cover it all with one brush, and that could confuse people.
Yeah, so we've got a couple of really good questions here in the audience. The first of them is this: is social selling biodemographic dependent? No, not really. If we think about Simon Kemp's research, which every quarter he does a State of the Nation review for his company, and it talks about digital penetration and how how buyer behaviors are changing and becoming digitized. And basically everybody that we want to address is on social. What we do need to do is we do need to make sure that we are presenting them with the things that they need to arrive at the decision that we're the people that they should be talking to. So part of that is around proving our credibility and our expertise. That's not by resharing corporate content. That is by creating our own content. Because if the three of us work for a company, actually as a rule, vomiting the same content into the digital space is of zero use. The commentary that we write on that, though, may well be the differentiator, which makes you decide you want to have a conversation with Andy rather than with myself or Alex, because it seems like Andy is the person that's more on your wavelength and speaking your language.
Like Jensen's old man video.
Exactly.
Same content, but presented in a very different way.
Yeah. So all of these people are accessible. We just need to make sure that we are where those people need to see us in order for us to be able to break through the noise.
Here's a concept though. What do we like about Jensen's content?
Different.
Yeah, go with that.
It's entertaining. That's the key thing.
It is, but there's something else about it.
Unique to him.
It is, but there's something else about it.
Well it makes him seem unthreatening.
It does, but there's something else about it.
Oh, come on then.
It required investment of time. So he cares.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because if you extrapolate this out, yeah, I love that comment, Amy. He's human, but he's invested time in it, which means, to me, he's professional, he cares about it. Okay, it's quality. He will have looked at that 2 or 3 times. And the reality is you can do that in a letter. It's about the investment in time in other people. And if you invest time in other people, they will probably pay that back, as Jensen was saying. I will invest time in you because I want to know more. And I wrote a letter once to, I think I covered it to Yvette Hansel-Bell at JCB when she was there. And I walked into her office and I'd literally written it in an ink pen and then put something behind it, which was just a context of it's weighty. So, you can't just put it in a bin. I walked into her office and she just went, not had one of these in 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not about the technologies, interestingly, isn't it? Because the technology can get everybody. But what Jensen's done there is illustrated his uniqueness, his brilliance, his careness, but he's invested time.
Yeah.
And if we invest time in people,
they'll
they will probably invest back.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's like when somebody shows up late for a meeting. That tells you that they think their time is worth more than yours. And that's incredibly rude, and that kicks the relationship off very badly. If Jensen has proactively invested his time in producing something which is entertaining and informative and all of that, then he's demonstrating that he thinks his audience are worth that investment. So Amy asked a question. She'd like $3 million, please. Andy, I believe this is your department, finance. Any advice on major brand partnerships? Well, it's sponsorship deals and partnership deals take an awful long time to set up. So you will be very lucky to get that tied down by the summer. Well, we're kind of in the summer now, so it may well prove to be a big challenge.
Unless Amy's pipeline is already strong, large and strong.
Yeah. But basically, with every sale, what we see, whether we're selling concepts, whether we're selling products and services, whether we're selling relationships and partnerships, everything is about building trust. Everything is about building the belief in all parties that there's some symbiotic thing going on where everybody stands to benefit from it. And that comes from putting the relationship and the help first rather than the revenue first. Because when anyone feels they're being sold to, they feel very uncomfortable about it, or they do these days, generally speaking. Engaging, relatable, inspirational education. Absolutely right, Mark. Absolutely right. And, you know, I think that so often when we are creating content, like when we get up on stage to speak, we forget that the primary objective is to entertain people. If you make it fun, they're in a better, that doesn't mean flippant or irreverent, but if you make it fun and entertaining, you reward them immediately for having invested that time in you. And, you know, there are so many cliches and old sayings about people won't remember the cost, but they'll remember how you made them feel. And actually, that's it. You know yourself when you walk out of a keynote speech and somebody says, was it good? Yeah, I really enjoyed that is the answer, rather than, oh, yes, they shared some really interesting points about revenue uplift.
Yeah, but I mean, it's interesting as well that when I was given one job in EMC, which was to actually go and get revenue share and market share back, someone gave me the book of how to, it's literally called How to Castrate a Bull, and it was written by the CEO of NetApp. And at the start of each chapter, he gives you 3 pages on business tips, things that you should do in business. And the one around presentations, I have never, ever forgotten. And again, I was in front of MSc and part-time MBA students, and they had some work to do. And then do some stuff and then give us a presentation. And you could see them all dive into it. And I said, whoa, stop. Just pause a second. Does anybody know the 3 questions they should ask themselves when they're about to write a presentation? And there was silence in the room, eerie silence, pun intended there, Mark. And the reality is there's 3 questions. And this is out there in the book, which is, what do you want people, and it doesn't matter whether it's a physical presentation, it's about when you pitch up, is what do you want people to feel? And it's a 1-word answer.
Good.
Okay. Good, excited, motivated, you know, inspired.
Yeah.
It's a 1-word answer. However many people give you a 12-word answer, it's like, no, it's a 1-word answer. Then what do you want them to know? And then lastly, what do you want them to do? And if you can't answer those 3 questions in a presentation, whether it be digital, whether it be physical, then you're onto a high road for nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's a great comment from Ty. How can we give reps time to invest in the people they should invest in with the targets that are set, especially for reps who have to do? Yeah, and this is a fundamental shift that's needed in how we measure and KPI our sales teams. And I was recently talking to a client, a prospect, and there was some pushback on, okay, this is what your people need to do in order to have more conversations. And some of the things that came out of that were, well, we haven't got time to do that because we've got all of these other tasks. And my flippant throwaway comment was, yeah, but they ain't working because you got no pipeline. And actually, there's no answer to that. You know, ultimately, if your people are fully deployed doing stuff to generate pipeline and they have no pipeline, the stuff they're doing does not work, which means you can afford not to do it, because if you've got no pipeline, not doing it doesn't change the fact you've got no pipeline, which frees you up to have a huge amount of time to do other stuff. And I think that so often what we see is that people, you know, it's like the joke about a guy goes to the doctor and he says, doctor, my wife thinks she's a chicken. And the doctor says, well, you need to have her committed. And the man says, well, we would, but we need the eggs. And it's like people are constantly doing this stuff on the treadmill and they're getting nowhere.
Yeah.
They're getting no traction. And we need to chuck that away and think about doing something entirely different.
Yeah, and sales people are suffering as a result.
Absolutely. Well, so are the businesses.
Yeah.
Well,
You may send us your sponsor deck for feedback, of course.
Yeah. Perhaps we should get Amy on the show. Talk to us about what works and what doesn't work.
Thank you very much indeed, Mark. Please join us again next week. And that's a great point from Mark. Yeah, don't tell them, show them. It's one thing to say that I'm the guy you should be doing business with, but if your behavior is not engaging expert, helpful, general behavior, why would somebody believe any of that?
Yeah.
Coming to a comedy club near you, Adam Gray.
Yeah, as you well know, Andrew, it's always a comedy club when I'm involved.
I think he was thinking more about your forecast, but
yeah, absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely. Yes. Nobody ever laughs when I present my forecast. Cry. Yes.
There's an eerie silence. Yeah, they wait for the tumbleweed moment to blow through. It's just like, okay. It's like. Did you hear the squeak of like wheels on chairs as people move back? So it's like, really? You put that up?
Yeah. Oh, they've all gone. What happened there? Yeah. But I do think that that there have been some really fascinating questions, and one of the things that I've got from the comments that we've had from the audience today is that, like everybody that we address this with, they all get it. We're all facing the same problems. The problems that the way that we have been traditionally selling no longer works. And you can dress it up however you like, but all of those old activities are not delivering the value that they used to. We used to run a webinar, people would download the white paper, and we'd phone them up and say, you downloaded the white paper, you're looking at one of these products. And now the answer is no, we're not. And so many sales organizations are stonewalled at every turn because the things that they traditionally have been indicative of somebody wanting to move forward with some sort of relationship with the business simply don't work that way anymore.
Yeah, but that's because we are on this massive treadmill, and I know we've got time up now, but we should explore this and maybe get someone like an Adrian McDonald on, who I used to work for, and he's now head of Dell, and he taught me one very important thing, which is when you are talking about selling or positioning anything with any organization, you've got to realize that you do one of two things. You either protect the brand or make the factory go faster. And we've lost the clarity of that. And it doesn't matter what product you're talking about there. It's like, how do you protect the brand or enhance that brand and make the factory go quicker? And if you do one of those two things, people will sit up and listen. But people very, very rarely have the ability to connect to one of those two things as to what their service or product does. And fundamentally, who doesn't want their brand protected or enhanced, and who doesn't want their processes? When I say factory, I mean a bank is a factory. It's about moving money from one to another. We just don't think about that.
So a good way to round up is Amy's comment here. The last bit, my whole team is winning because I'm fearless. That is the thing, isn't it? People have to be brave. If they want to be successful, they have to be brave. They have to be prepared to go outside their comfort zone and do something, because the stuff they were doing doesn't work. You need to try something new, no matter how uncomfortable it makes you feel.
But you've got to be very careful about that, because you've then got to make sure that you give your people the time and the space and the security to be as brave as you. Otherwise, you open a massive chasm and you end up with a leader over here who is brave, who is fearless, and then you get a whole bunch of people going, I know I want to be over there, but I don't have that bravery. I don't have that. And you need to spend a lot of time investing third-party coaching and work to do that. And that's personal experience, where someone once said to me, I want you to walk down this very dark tunnel with no lights whatsoever in this mountain, with a hand in front of you and a hand at the side. And when I got to the end, he went, how did you feel? It was like, I gave all the emotions. And he went, but that's how your team feels, because they don't have the same permissions as you.
Yeah.
Right. So here we are at time. Gentlemen, thank you. Thank you to Jensen, of course, who has had to go off to sell something to make his fortune. Thank you to everybody in the audience, as always. Fantastic input from all of you. Thank you for being part of the community. If you haven't already, please join our LinkedIn group to continue the conversation. And anybody in the US can join us in another 8 hours when we've got the US version of this. Thank you very much indeed, Amy. Ping us all a connection request and we can keep the conversation going. Yeah, so until either later today or indeed next week, thank you all very much indeed and have a good week.